Scotland, disruption likely, temperatures well below freezing. Some sunshine through the central belt and the borders region, wintry showers for Northern Ireland, a sunny start for much of England, but wintry showers for western parts of Wales and the West Country as well, leading to some icy stretches. Met Office warnings out right through the rest of the weekend into the beginning of next week. As we go through Sunday, plenty of sunshine across central and eastern parts of England, but wintry showers across Scotland, Northern Ireland, western fringes of England and Wales. Some of these will be on the wintry side, so it'll be heavy with hail and snow and could lead to further accumulations and icy stretches. Temperatures struggling to rise much above freezing, leading to another very cold night into Monday morning. So another frosty start, icy stretches, warnings remain in place. Through the day we'll see some sleet and snow showers, but plenty of winter sunshine as well. And then it just gradually becomes a little less cold as we head towards the middle of the week, with still some rain and snow around.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's a brand new year and we're giving you the chance to win our biggest cash prize to date.
£85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
And we've come to the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland to celebrate.
An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
Well, good evening. It's 9 o'clock. I'm Alex Armstrong. Tonight,
we're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
make Venezuela great again. Those are the words of President Donald Trump as the USA launches a massive military interventionism in Venezuela. The Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife have now been captured and flown out of the country.
I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law.
Oh, strong words from our Prime Minister, eh? Sir Keir Starmer has refused to condemn the US President over the strikes earlier today, and his latest statement is almost identical to other EU leaders. Did they have a little group call to align their messages, perhaps? Wow, the Islamist regime in Iran is facing its biggest series of protests in decades. Are we close to a Venezuela-style intervention? That's as Trump's warning from Washington is that they are locked and loaded and ready to intervene. And Angelina Jolie has travelled to the Gaza border on a humanitarian tour, saying she wants to spotlight the crisis and push for aid to reach Palestinians. But should celebrities really be getting involved at all, frankly? And an award-winning NHS nurse has been struck off after sharing anti-migrant posts deemed offensive to Muslims. I'll be examining why she's been struck off, while others accused of alleged anti-Semitism haven't. And on my panel tonight, former Conservative MP Jane Stevenson, former Labour advisor Paul Richards, and Reform UK councillor Jamie McIver. And what do you think is going on here?
Holding the Oscar, and he goes, "Why you hit that man, Uncle Will?" And I was like, "Oh!"
You gotta explain that to him.
And it's like, you know, I'm gonna be crying. Somebody got tissue?
I wonder if he's going to claim to be the victim of all of it. I don't know. Huge 2 hours coming up. Your Saturday evening is just getting started, but let's get your news with Aaron Armstrong first.
Hi there, very good evening to you. 2 minutes past 9 in the GB newsroom. Donald Trump says the US will run Venezuela after ousting Nicolas Maduro in a military attack. He's posted this image of the country's president in custody on board a US Navy vessel and says Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores, are heading to New York to face charges of narco-terrorism. They were captured by US forces and taken out of the country after large-scale strikes on the capital, Caracas. President Trump says Washington will now take control of Venezuela until there's an orderly transition of power, although he provided few details about who would replace Maduro. Trump says the US will be strongly involved in Venezuela's oil industry and has accused Maduro of heading a drug cartel.
For many years after his term as president of Venezuela expired, Maduro remained in power and waged a ceaseless campaign of violence, terror, and subversion against the United States of America, threatening not only our people, but the stability of the entire region. Maduro and his wife will soon face the full might of American justice and stand trial on
Sir Keir Starmer says the UK regards Nicolas Maduro as an illegitimate president and has long supported a transition of power. He reiterated his support for international law and says the government will shed no tears about the end of the regime. Earlier, the Prime Minister confirmed the UK played no part in the operation.
I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law.
A murderer is among 2 prisoners who remain at large after absconding from jail on New Year's Day. Matthew Armstrong on the left of your picture and Daniel Washbourne are understood to have left HMP Leyhill in South Gloucestershire on Thursday evening. The pair are originally not from Avon and Somerset, but they do have links to other parts of the country. Police want to hear from anyone who has information about their whereabouts. Reform UK says it would jail child rapists for life if it wins the next election. Its head of policy, Zia Youssef, announced the plans earlier, confirming the party would introduce mandatory whole-life orders for offenders convicted of the crime, making them ineligible for parole. Under existing rules, life sentences can be given to child rapists at a judge's discretion. The search for a missing person has been called off this evening after 2 bodies were recovered from the sea off the coast of Yorkshire. A 67-year-old man died at the scene in Withersney yesterday afternoon. A second body was recovered last night. It's understood they were trying to help a teenage girl who was washed away. Police say the circumstances are not thought to be suspicious. Swiss prosecutors have placed 2 managers of the bar where a blaze killed at least 40 people in Switzerland on New Year's Day under criminal investigation. They're suspected of having committed homicide, arson and causing bodily harm by negligence. The blaze at the Constellation Bar in Crans, Montana, injured a further 120 people. The first 4 victims have been identified as 2 16-year-olds, a girl and a boy, along with 2 other people aged 18 and 21, all of whom were Swiss. Investigations into the fire continue. And it looks likely that the cold weather that we've been experiencing over the past couple of days is set to continue for the next week. The Met Office is predicting up to 40 centimetres of snow in Scotland and around 5 centimetres in England and Wales. Pictures there from North Tyneside in Newcastle, where it looks particularly cold. Yellow warnings are in place for many parts of the country until Monday. Travel delays, cancellations, disruption on the roads and the railways are expected. Those are your headlines. I'll have more for you at 10 now. Back to Alex.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Well, America has taken out the illegitimate socialist Venezuelan narco-terrorist Nicolas Maduro.
Mamá huevo, qué locura. Mocaí. Mira esa mierda, explotaron allá toda esa mierda porque tú no estás explotando.
And the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has said that they will run Venezuela.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious, because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela.
I don't know about you, but I welcome the bloodless removal of a dictator who left his people to starve, bankrolled narco-terrorism, propped up Vladimir Putin's war machine and jailed opponents after refusing to honour democratic elections. What is there to whine about? And yet, the global left has gone hysterical. They bleat about sovereignty while ignoring starvation. They chant about peace while excusing tyranny. They cry international law, their favourite thing, only when a strong man they like is finally stopped. Maduro was not misunderstood reformer, was he? He was a cartel boss with a flag. His regime turned a once rich nation into a mass migration factory, exporting misery across the hemisphere and laundering billions through drugs, gold and corruption. So spare me the tears for a dictator who poisoned democracy and crushed dissent. And how has our great, strong Prime Minister responded to all of this?
Well, I want to establish the facts first. I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law. But I think at this stage, fast-moving situation, let's establish the facts and take it from there.
Words of confidence. No wonder why British people think our Prime Minister is weak. He cares more about international law than defending our borders, doesn't he? Trump's move has made him look even weaker. A Prime Minister, by the way, who gave away the Chagos Islands because of that phrase they all love, international law. And here is his latest tweet, astonishingly similar to other European leaders. Did they perhaps have a little group phone call to decide what they should all say? Do you think he spoke to little Napoleon in France and said, oh, Macron, what are we going to do? We all hate it, but we have to say something. Now, let's not forget about the real consequences here for our collective enemy, China. China has invested heavily in Venezuela's oil infrastructure and technology sectors. Between 2010 and 2020, Venezuela received about 86% of China's arms sales to the Americas and is the largest buyer of Chinese oil. That is incredible. This was the ultimate show, removing Maduro, of American power, wasn't it? It was accountability for a dictator. While establishment leftists scream into an empty void, Venezuelans are doing this. They're so out of touch, aren't they? They're all talking about international law when actually this is about accountability. It's about looking after our own too. It was the end of impunity for a man who mocked elections, tortured critics, and fed his people propaganda instead of food. And notice the silence from those who lecture us daily about human rights. Suddenly, they can't find their voices, can they? Suddenly, tyranny gets a pass because the tyrant wore the right ideological badge. The message today is simple from Trump. Dictators are not untouchable. Borders do not shield criminals forever, and the world is safer when these narco states fall without a single innocent life being lost. If you oppose that, you're not anti-war, you're pro-tyrant. And joining me now is geopolitical expert Kate Jones to discuss this. Kate, thank you very much for joining me this evening. It really does seem to me, Kate, that the global left here have had their arms up in the air about international law, and I appreciate there is some importance to it, but this man was an evil dictator, in my opinion. He's done some horrific things to the great people of Venezuela, and actually we should be welcoming this kind of interventionism because it's what foreign policy should be about, removing these awful people from power.
Well, this represents a massive geopolitical shift. We're not just looking at Venezuela itself and changing the Southern Hemisphere under Monroe Doctrine. We're also looking at a massive shift across the globe, and Chinese dependency suddenly on U.S. Venezuelan oil, as it seems is going to happen, will change its objectives in Taiwan and also in Russia with the Ukraine war. So I think we'll see a significant change in the balance of power with the U.S. Running the oil in Venezuela.
Yeah, Kate, and that's really important. The oil here is actually critical because China and Venezuela have some quite important agreements between each other to buy this oil. Chinese buying the oil, which is propping up their national security, supporting their efforts. But actually, this is right on the doorstep of the United States of America. This is Trump saying, get out of our territory, isn't it? All while, by the way, it seems to be that Chinese officials are actually in Venezuela right now.
That's right. And then you sort of wonder what the coordination of this might have been if the Chinese knew or if there had been some arrangement in advance to ensure that this would run smoothly. Although, given the Trump administration, I think that the impetus to do this has been there for a very long time. he brought up Soleimani. This was something that he's thought for a long time about Venezuela. This goes back to when he was 45, and originally when they had attempted some sort of an overthrow. So I think it's been on his radar forever. There's been a huge focus coming out of State Department to the Southern Hemisphere, and Marco Rubio is part of that. Of course, he's Cuban, and you see that link back to Venezuela. I think some of the humor in this right now is people are saying that Marco Rubio will be Venezuela, Cuba, and the Shah of Iran is the running joke. So and at the same time, we can't discount what's going on in Iran at this very moment, because all of these events are very much linked, and that regime is reaching a level of instability we've not seen before. I think they took away some of the security forces from the embassies, and so Iran and Venezuelan oil go to China, and these two are linked.
Yeah, Kate Jones. We'll be talking about Iran later on this evening, if anyone's wondering, watching at home. Kate Jones, thank you very much for joining me this evening. I'd like to get the thoughts of my panel in the room. Former Conservative MP Jane Stevenson, former Labour advisor Paul Richards, and Reform UK councillor Jamie McIver. Welcome to the show, everybody. Jamie, I'll start with you. Perhaps we talk about Keir Starmer briefly. It seems to me he's rather than come out, as of old, where you have Thatcher come out and make a strong statement based on her beliefs in the country's best interest, he's gone, I better talk to my aides about this one, and I better speak to the European leaders. How pathetic. What's happened to our country?
I'm not going to attempt that amazing impression, but what I will say is it's proven that there's only kind of one British politician that is a world leader in the making, and that's Nigel Farage, because he instantly came out this morning and said what we were all thinking. But more to the point, Starmer showed once again to be so weak. It's embarrassing. As a Brit, I cringe that that's our leader. But also, Alex, what I think is very interesting is he revealed this morning in that interview that he'd actually spoken to the BBC before he had actually spoken to the president of our closest ally. I find that totally deranged. How your closest ally has just done a very intense and clearly a professional execution of a military operation, and rather than get on the phone and say, blimey, didn't see that one coming, is there anything I can do to help you? He revealed that he'd rather speak to the BBC, and he revealed that he's been completely locked out, probably because the United States don't trust this Prime Minister like the country doesn't trust him.
Or, Paul, care what Keir Starmer thinks, quite frankly. Who cares? He hasn't got an opinion, clearly.
I think at a time like this, which is an epoch-making moment in global politics, I'm quite glad we've got a grown-up in charge who does just stop, pause, deliberate, look at the evidence, weigh up what is actually happening, rather than just tweeting from the hip. And Farage's tweet, by the way, has declared this as an illegal act. Now, I think it's a bit precipitate to say that, but he said it's illegal. And now, is he an international lawyer? I don't think so. But it's an odd thing to say as the very first thing you say. And I'm quite glad that the Prime Minister said, well, let's just, talk to our allies. By the way, none of the other world leaders were in the loop on this either. It was obviously hermetically sealed from the world. And that's how they managed to maintain the secrecy that allowed it to happen. So, Israel weren't dealt in and other allies weren't dealt in either. But, yeah, it's a moment for all of us just to take pause and to work out what on earth is going to happen next, because all of the assumptions of the post-war world about international rules-based law are up in the air.
Jane, are we waking up now? Is the West waking up to the realism of the world? We've lived in this bubble for a very long time where we should, kumbaya, all hold hands together. In the meantime, Putin's invaded Ukraine. China is making inroads across Africa and across the world. Iran has been funding terrorism in the Middle East. We've been sat on our hands going, it's all OK, everybody. And actually, Trump's brought a bit of realism back to the West, saying we could end up like these countries if we don't stop this now.
Well, I think it is certainly going to be an interesting year, because it looks like President Trump has decided to do a 180 on this. I'm not going to get involved in foreign disputes. He has ploughed on in there. I think today, you're absolutely right, Paul, it will be in the history books. I mean, this is extraordinary. And I think it sent such a clear message to the mullahs in Iran. It has really sent a message to quite a few people. And I think that's what Trump's new strategy looks like, that he wants to have this much more muscular, visible response.
Is it the end of America
first, I wonder? You know, the MAGA base was...
Well, is it not America first in many respects? Hundreds of thousands of people die a year to the drug trade in America, and trust me, as someone who lived in parts of America where the drugs are exceptionally bad on the West Coast, you would want that drug trade to be stopped. So that's going to help Americans. But also, this is in part of America's sphere of influence, isn't it, Venezuela? It has been for a very long time.
But he said no war, he said no more wars, and he said America first. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it is different from what he said.
No more wars thing, but is it America first in the sense that it's putting America's national interest first? Yes. Is it protecting Americans or help them be healthier and not have all these drugs coming in? Yes. So there are some America first...
If that's what you believe it's about. But he said it's about oil, and I believe it's about oil.
But I think what you have to bear in mind here is Donald Trump is a man that does do what he says he's going to do. Now, you may have a point on that, but I don't really think the United States is at war with Venezuela, and this is going to be for a long time. This is a case of liberating a country from a dictator, and that's exactly...
We did say that about Iraq, though, didn't we?
Well, he wasn't legitimately elected.
No, he's an absolute
Trump's
bad man.
choice of words, calling him narco-terrorist.
Just like this country, drugs rip through American society like it does here, and actually he is putting his own people first. And if you're the mother or a father of someone that's died from drugs in America, you'd be sitting there popping champagne tonight.
But that would also be an argument to go to a lot of other conflicts.
Well, yes,
Where's
true.
the limit?
Colombia next.
Perhaps Iran will be next, and we'll talk about that at 10 o'clock. Can I just very quickly, if we've got this clip, there's a clip of protesters in London outside the Venezuelan embassy. Let's roll that for you quickly.
For the self-determination of the Venezuelan people, they will do the same to anyone who dares to challenge the imperialist interests, the interests of the state.
These people are deranged. There are celebrations across Venezuela today, yet these people are outside the Venezuelan embassy protesting against the removal of a dictator. I mean, this is the left in Britain. This is the left.
It's not the left in Britain. It's a small section of the left, the Stop the War left.
Zara Sultana was right.
Yeah, it's your party, but it's not the left as a whole.
It's the Zach Polanski said this was a bad idea, and we all believe it. We're all going to go and do whatever he says. It's so embarrassing. It's weak and embarrassing. But actually, what's good is it just reveals the mask slips with the left, which is why I think
it's not the left. Helpful. You're saying it's one thing. I'm on the left, and I agree with
Labour members of Parliament saying similar things. So there's no agreement.
I mean, it's stop the war, isn't it? It's stop the war, which is a left-wing faction.
But they are completely deranged. They are completely out of touch with what Venezuelans want.
True.
And we've seen this from other political parties today, putting out tweets basically saying, we condemn the actions Trump has made. You can condemn it from an international law perspective, but that is a piece of paper. The people in Venezuela are celebrating the removal of a dictator who destroyed their lives, destroyed their country, and they're happy about it.
Just like in Iraq. They celebrated in Iraq too.
Well, Iraq is actually doing quite well now.
What comes next is the key question.
Well, Iraq is doing a lot better today. Speak to people who go there. There you go. That's what they tell me. Anyway, listen, time now for the Great British Giveaway, and 2026 could be on us with an incredible 85 grand to be won. Hayley Sparks has got all the details you need.
It's a brand new year, and we're giving you the chance to win our biggest cash prize to date. £85,000 in tax-free cash to make your new year the best yet. And we've come to the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland to celebrate. Imagine what the coming year could look like for you with a whopping £85,000 in the bank. You can have the complete Lapland experience all in one place by visiting the Northern Lights Village. Or just safe in the knowledge that this year is on us. An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 9th of February 2026. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
All right, coming up, Angelina Jolie, you know, the Hollywood actress. Well, she's travelled to Gaza, the border there, on a humanitarian tour. Should she really just be getting her nose involved in this? Should she just, stop, celebrities, stop. Anyway, this is Alex Armstrong tonight on GB News, and that's next.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
What do you think about insufferable Hollywood actors and actresses? Well, I've got another one here for you. Angelina Jolie has travelled to the Gaza border on a humanitarian tour, saying she wants to spotlight the crisis and push for aid to reach Palestinians. I think you're just a few years too late, Angelina. Anyway, the Oscar winner visited the closed Rafah border, meeting volunteers and injured Palestinians as thousands of aid trucks wait to enter Gaza. But her visit reignites the debate over celebrities getting involved in politics, as usual, with concerns that many lack the knowledge to pass proper judgment. Well, we're now joined by chairman of Intertalent rights group Jonathan Shalit and Telegraph columnist and author Jake Wallace-Simmons. Thank you very much for joining me, gentlemen. Just a few days ago, Jake, I'll put this to you. Just a few days ago, we saw the El Fatah case where we had a range of celebrities endorsing a man with these vile, tweets behind him. I've got a bit of egg on their face now. Should they just butt out of politics? They don't seem to understand it or really research what's going on.
I think that question should be filed under questions to which the answer is yes, frankly. It's pretty obvious. I mean, these people, their careers literally depend upon being narcissistic, on being the centre of attention. That's all they're really good at. Some of them are quite talented actors, and fair play to them. But quite why they think that they should be able to have the authority to stray into international affairs is beyond me. And the thing that clinches it for me is that all these celebrities, there are so many that speak out, are so stunning and brave and speak out these days. There's Olivia Colman, Emma Thompson, Stephen Fry, Mike Leigh, Judi Dench, Mark Ruffalo, John Cusack, and on. All of them seem to have the same view, weirdly. Why is it they all have the same view? Why is it they're all pro-Palestinian? Why is it that none of them, not one, has spoken up properly about the Iranian people and their standing up to tyranny currently? Why do they not talk about the atrocities that Hamas have committed? Angelina Jolie could have gone to Israel just after October the 7th and supported those poor people then. Why do they all jump on the same bandwagon? It's because they're all idiots.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree, Jake. It really is. I mean, look, there are some causes I can get behind. When they talk about child poverty, I can get behind it because we all want to look after children. But more often than not, Jake, what happens is these celebrities go and make these trips over to war-torn countries they don't understand, have a Scooby-Doo about what's going on there. They don't understand the political implications for it. And then they come and basically push a bunch of propaganda from NGOs and charities in some cases, is my opinion, Jake, and then they bring that back and they tell that to their audience. I think that radicalises their audience, either completely for them or completely against them, and actually creates quite a lot of division. These people aren't experts, are they?
That's right, and I think that particularly in the case of Israel and Hamas, there's something quite sinister going on here, which is that these celebrities have become, I'm afraid, supporters of the Hamas agenda because they've spent so much time and energy in criticising Israel, turning public opinion against Israel. And don't forget, during the war, that's exactly what Hamas was trying to do. Hamas was sacrificing its own Palestinian civilians by putting them into harm's way so that bad pictures would come out of civilian suffering, so that the world would turn against Israel, so that Israel would be forced eventually to stop and Hamas would win. And the celebrities have played a part in Hamas's project and Hamas's agenda. So really, they're unwittingly, albeit unwittingly, making themselves into, I'm afraid, mouthpieces for jihad. So it's quite serious, really.
Jonathan, thanks for joining us this evening too. I'll put the same question to you. Are our celebrities just getting involved in ill-informed campaigns more often than not? They don't really know what it is they're supporting and then end up supporting some pretty dubious people sometimes. Should they just butt out of it?
Right, that's a multi-layered question. First of all, Jake's absolutely right on the ignorance of many celebrities who go inside, take one side and one view, but don't understand the bigger picture. And Palestine, Israel, Hamas could not be a greater example of how many celebrities, have gone one-sided. An example I will use is when I keep on hearing about gays to Palestine, I'm thinking to myself, if gays actually knew what happened to gays in Palestine, they wouldn't be saying gays to Palestine. That is the ridiculousness of people's views on trying to support Palestine. At the same time, of course, I believe in free speech totally. So as long as people don't break the law, whatever my personal opinion is of the situation, people have the right to express their view. I think from a career perspective, if you're a celebrity and you get involved with politics, current affairs, human rights issues, it's never black and white. There's always grey, there's always right, there's always wrong. And if you're an entertainer, I'm not actually sure the public are that interested in what entertainers think. I think when Bono, for example, stands up on stage and starts talking about the latest political issue at the moment, people yawn. They go to hear U2, the greatest rock bands in the world, but they don't go to hear U2 talking about his political view.
Well,
I think...
Jonathan,
yes.
Apologies to interrupt you because I wanted to ask you about some of the acts we've seen over the last year. We've got Kneecap, of course, the Irish band. We've got Bob Vylan in Britain. They've basically made their entire band about politics. Is this a trend we're expecting to see now?
Well, I think certainly some people in the public eye, particularly in music, realise if they're provocative, they'll get attention. And that does work. Now, of course, some people are completely genuine and say what they do from the heart, and some do it for publicity seeking. And I'm certainly not going to say everyone's the same, because there are some very genuine celebrities who care deeply and they do shine a spotlight. And I've seen many examples of celebrities. I happen to think Angelina Jolie is very genuine in what she tries to do. I think she's misguided, but I don't think for a moment she's not genuine in her ambitions.
OK, Jake, I'll give you the final say on this one. Go ahead.
Well, up until now, I was a firm supporter of free speech. But right now, I think if someone suggested taking free speech away from celebrities, I think it would be quite an attractive option. I mean, they're just so vacuous and so idiotic. I mean, I'm sure Angelina Jolie is entirely genuine in what she says, but the problem is that she's taking, as I explained, the side of the jihadis over the side of liberal Western democracies. She's got a big audience, people follow her, but she doesn't really know what she's talking about. So I'd be in favour of all celebrities just shutting up for once and letting the experts get on with the job.
There we go. Jonathan, Jake, thank you very much for joining me this evening, gentlemen, for a good debate. All right, well, listen, coming up next on the show, a decorated NHS nurse who rose from being a cleaner to a ward manager has been struck off after posting a string of anti-migrant Facebook posts in the wake of the Southport riots. But first, anti-migrant activists who travelled to France to stop small boats are now facing arrest. That's next on Alex Armstrong Tonight.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
The weather across the southern parts of Europe may not be as cold as it is here at the moment, but it is looking pretty unsettled. There's some heavy thundery rain pushing across parts of Madeira, the Canary Islands and into southern parts of Portugal and Spain as well. Also further outbreaks of rain further east, heavy rain and hill snow spreading across many parts of the Balkans, causing some impacts here. More changeable weather to come as we go through the next few days and into the beginning of next week. I'll see you later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather. Some of us have seen some lovely crisp winter sunshine today, others heavy snow showers, and it will turn very cold tonight and icy, a northerly wind across us, the air coming all the way down from the Arctic, so everyone's noticing that chill, and it will stay with us for another few days at least. Widespread cold and ice and frost across the whole of the UK as we head through the evening and overnight. Further heavy snow showers for northern Scotland, sleet and snow showers for Northern Ireland, West Wales, the West Country. Elsewhere, icy stretches, still a few wintry showers down the east coast and temperatures well below freezing for everyone, perhaps down to -8 to -10 in one or two spots across the Glens of Scotland. But looking at the details for Sunday morning, a very icy start, further heavy snow showers pushing through across central and northern parts of Scotland, disruption likely, temperatures well below freezing. Some sunshine through the central belt and the borders region, wintry showers for Northern Ireland, a sunny start for much of England, but wintry showers for western parts of Wales and the West Country as well, leading to some icy stretches. Met Office warnings out right through the rest of the weekend into the beginning of next week. As we go through Sunday, plenty of sunshine across central and eastern parts of England, but wintry showers across Scotland, Northern Ireland, western fringes of England and Wales. Some of these will be on the wintry sides, will be heavy with hail and snow and could lead to further accumulations and icy stretches. Temperatures struggling to rise much above freezing, leading to another very cold night into Monday morning. So another frosty start, icy stretches, warnings remain in place. Through the day, we'll see some sleet and snow showers, but plenty of winter sunshine as well. And then it just gradually becomes a little less cold as we head towards the middle of the week, with still some rain and snow around.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Well, I just wanted to let you know some very good news for a change. Luke Littler has won the World Championship after beating Jan van Veen, I think I've said his name correctly, 7-1 in the final at Alexandra Palace. Absolutely fantastic. Congratulations, Luke, from everyone here at GB News. What a legend indeed. All right, we'll bring you more on that. If we hear anything from Luke, we'll, of course, let you know too. All right, let's move on, shall we? Because anti-migrant activists who travelled to France to stop small boats are now facing facing arrest. They include those from Raise the Colours, which has carried out what it describes as civilian border control or Operation Stop the Boats. Well, videos show them wading into the sea, shouting at migrants, slashing small boats and their engines before they can be used for channel crossings. But GB News can reveal that they now face arrest, which senior French politicians said to be, well, apparently furious at the situation. I wonder what they're so furious about. Source close to Minister Laurent Nunez, the equivalent of the Home Secretary, told La Voix du Nord, I think, again, I've got that right, newspaper, that he demanded that the members of these groups be identified and arrested. Well, joining me to discuss this is the research director at the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates. Rob, pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for joining me. Of course, many people will be wondering, why are these politicians so up in arms about these boats being stopped? Is it because they want them actually to be coming to Britain?
I think it's because the French politicians are being shown up by these chaps. Now, look, they seem, these individuals from Raise the Colours, to be conducting themselves in a perfectly sensible, calm manner. They just effectively seem to be walking around sand dunes, cutting boats, and it is actually probably bearing more success than anything the French have been able to do. And it is embarrassing for the French government. This is, of course, a government that has been given £500 million of British taxpayers' money, allegedly, to stop these boats coming over to the UK in the first place. And they've done absolutely nothing. I think there's been one video of one chap stopping one boat from actually departing from French shores. And we've seen in recent weeks, of course, French trade unions refusing to actually stop the boats. We've seen obstinance from the Mayor of Calais and the Interior Minister previously as well. So I think these are really just individuals that are fed up of seeing their country undergo what is effectively, and many are calling it an invasion. I think that's probably the right term now. We're approaching 200,000 from French shores and are trying to take matters into their own hands. And I think it is a sad indictment, actually, that we've got a French government now that are not recognising why the British public are so legitimately aggrieved. They've surrendered areas of Calais effectively to these people smuggling gangs. So now areas where the police have given up, they've thrown their hands up and said there's nothing we can do. And the Brits are saying, no, we're not having this. We are sick to the back teeth of seeing tens of thousands of individuals, unvetted men, coming across the channel every single year. And I think actually it's another important point is we haven't seen any of this condemnation about the Care for Calais groups, those charities, those left-wing charities that are over in Calais helping those individuals and actually, in a way, causing the crisis that northern France is seeing. We've seen Zach Plansky go over there in the last couple of weeks as well. We've not heard any of this nonsense from the French Interior Minister. It's only when it's individuals that are actually concerned about protecting the sovereignty of British borders that we seem to get this condemnation. I think it really just is indicative of this French government not operating in good faith. And I think it's high time that actually the Labour government just said, this isn't working, we're not going to go down this path anymore, we're going to take matters into our own hand and start detaining and deporting every single illegal migrant.
Yeah, I mean, with the news that illegal migrants might be getting council housing, it surely will just create even more incentive to come here. I thought the whole point of the government was to disincentivise, which is what the French president actually told Keir Starmer, disincentivise them from coming here. Rob, what is the ultimate solution here? You said it was to detain and deport. Do you think that will stop the boats if we started doing that in Britain?
100%. So these boats are coming in large part because they're on these sprawling networks of individuals across social media, and individuals looking to make the crossing are being told just how easy it is to get to the UK and make that asylum claim, the comfort that they live in whilst their asylum claim is being processed, and then the access to Britain's very generous welfare system once they are given refugee status. So I think it's inevitable, actually, that a future government in 2029 will need to come in and make it very clear that actually what we're going to do is hugely increase Britain's detention facility, immigration detention facility. We've only got about 2,000 beds at the moment, which is ridiculous. We're going to end the use of hotels. We're going to put billions of pounds into increasing this, billions of pounds into immigration enforcement to find those illegal migrants that have escaped into the black economy. And we're going to leave the UCHR. We're going to end any right to judicial review. Any individual that's coming to the UK via illegal or, as the Home Office calls it, irregular means is going to be detained and deported within 2 weeks. And that news will get back very, very quickly to those people in Europe looking to make the crossing into Britain.
Well, let's hope so, Rob. Thank you so much for joining me. Pleasure as usual. Research director, should I say, at the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates. I've got my panel back in the room. Paul, I'll pass it over to you. Rob was saying there that this has basically shown up the French, which is why they're so unhappy about it, because they've done these blokes have done the job that the French police are being paid, authorities being paid £500 million of our quids for.
Well, we've said it week after week, haven't we, Alex? Yeah. So the French are standing around watching or not even being there at all when, as you say, they're using our taxpayers' money. I think it needs to be raised again and again. I mean, I'm against vigilanteism. I don't think it's a good idea. I think these people going over there are up against, not the migrants, they're up against organised crime syndicates who are very dangerous and armed and would think nothing of causing those young men harm. So I'm against that. And also, don't forget, the business model is not a single trip over the channel. It's to keep sending them until they get to the UK. So even if the boats are being disrupted in this way, the crime gangs still get their money by keeping trying. So it doesn't actually stop the boats in that sense.
Jamie, when it comes to the government's policies on this, do you think they're doing enough to disincentivise people coming here? I mean, Shabana Mahmood has, at least given signs that she wants to get tougher on definite leave to remain and things like that, so that would be taken as a positive, but it hasn't seemed to have stemmed the flow so much.
No, nothing's working because they don't actually want to stop the boats, these people. I don't trust this government at all.
I disagree with that, though. I think
the Labour Party don't see it as a massive problem. That's the problem.
It's a huge problem.
They ideologically think it's all right. They'd rather be... We've seen videos of the Home Secretary a few years ago welcoming people off of boats in parts of Europe. But I think the very important point here is that the people that need to be arrested are the people that are actually manning these vessels. If I wanted to start a business to do ferry crossings for tourists to go to France, I'd have so many policies that I'd have to be compliant with, safety reasons, and if I was to do it without so, it would be illegal. Why is it? The French government know this is happening. It's a huge business. It's become a racket, and actually their priority should be arresting those people that are organising the crossings. And of course, people need to behave within the law, no matter what country they're in. But people are taking things into their own hands. In Essex, where I am, we've got a RAF Wethersfield. On New Year's Eve, mums and dads were standing blocking the buses from taking loads of unvetted men into the town centre where their daughters will be celebrating New Year's Eve because the government's not got a grip on anything.
Yeah, Jane?
I think what the left, they may want to stop the boats because politically they are in a lot of trouble, but they don't have the stomach to take the action necessary. And without a complete rewrite of the asylum system...
Rob was saying we need to detain and deport people. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, but I think it needs something further. We have to look at the amount of people moving around the world trying to get a better life. It is a completely different picture now. Global movement is much easier. Information, everyone has their mobile phone, sub-Saharan Africa, a lot of Asia, and under current asylum laws, they would pretty much all have a legitimate claim.
That's the problem, isn't it?
We
the law
need
needs
to
be
rewrite.
completely
That's what Labour won't do.
Paul, final word to you. Government doing enough?
Well, doing everything it can, and if there was a single simple answer, then we'd have done it, and you'd have done it when you were in government too.
There is a single answer: leave the ECHR.
That wouldn't solve everything.
Well, there we go. Listen, thank you very much, panel. This debate's going to be going on for a long time. Coming up, though. Well, the Islamist regime in Iran is facing its biggest series of protests in decades. Are we close to a Venezuela-style intervention? That's what Trump's warning, that he is locked and loaded and ready to intervene. But next, an NHS nurse has been struck off over anti-Muslim social media posts, while several doctors who have made anti-Semitic remarks received far lighter punishments. That's next.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
A decorated NHS nurse who rose from being a cleaner to a ward manager has been struck off after posting a series of anti-migrant Facebook posts in the wake of the Southport riots. Well, Roberta Batchelor, a Pride of Nursing Award winner, was found to have shared images and warnings about Muslims and migrants, with the Nursing and Midwifery Council ruling the posts were offensive, discriminatory and completely incompatible with her role as a senior nurse. What's interesting here, however, is that there's also been multiple cases involving NHS staff accused of anti-Semitism who received far lighter sanctions. One instance, Ramer Al-Adwan was suspended for 15 months after making comments about Jewish supremacy and appearing to express support for Hamas. A tribunal later chose not to impose any restrictions on her practice. Well, joining us now is NHS GP Dr. Bashra Mukherjee. Dr. Bashra, thank you very much for joining me. Is this an example of two-tier in the NHS?
I want to say that I'm against all censorship, full stop. And this is something that I've spoken about on the channel before. And it was the other side at the time. It was about anti-Semitism. And my stance is the same. Why should what we do in our personal lives have an effect on our job? And it really is, it's really unfair. I face this regularly as a doctor myself, where people constantly threaten me to report me to the GMC for posts on social media. I simply don't understand it.
Yeah, well, there's a consensual panel determination, which is part of the regulatory body, I understand. They stated this: the agreement which was put before the panel sets out Mrs. Batchelor's full admissions to the facts alleged in the charges, that her actions amounted to misconduct and that her fitness to practice is currently impaired by reason of that misconduct. It's further stated in the agreement that an appropriate sanction in this case would be a striking off order. It just seems to me that there's one rule if you criticise things like migration and another if you're criticising Jewish people, and we keep seeing this cropping up. We saw it with West Midlands policing. It's just many people looking at this story will go, well, there's a two-tier hypocrisy to the NHS's regulations here.
I think there needs to be changes to the way the governing bodies operate in general. My personal take is that it's very strict, not just strict, but unnecessarily so, to the extent where we have 30,000 nursing posts to be filled, and we are, this nurse, clearly she's had a wonderful career up until this point. I think everyone deserves second chances for sure. What they've said in this particular case is that, she had done repeat cases, but was it flagged up repeatedly and then she continued to do repeat such cases despite being warned of it? Because I think people deserve second chances. It's possible, it's very plausible for sure when people get emotional to write something on social media. I think people should have an opportunity to correct those actions. And it doesn't seem to me, as a bystander, and I haven't looked at the whole case and I haven't looked at the full details, for me as a bystander, it doesn't seem that way, that she's been given an opportunity to correct that mistake, really.
Yeah, Dr. Mukherjee, I'll put this to you because many people will say, despite, you may even disagree. I like free speech personally, and I do think doctors and nurses should be able to say what they want to say because they are human beings after all. But they do work for the taxpayer. They do work for us. And many people, whether you disagree with Mrs. Batchelor or all the other doctors that I've mentioned, people will say, well, how can that person treat me fairly? What if they have a hatred towards me for who I am? Therefore, I don't feel comfortable being seen to or treated by them. What would you say to that charge?
I find this absolutely it's crazy. Like you don't know what people's true intentions are. There have been far worse doctors and nurses who don't even have social media, who go around committing crimes within the NHS, and maybe even their quality of work is terrible as well. Why should the social media post dictate how somebody is at work? I personally can make a personal distinction. Of course, for me, an unwell patient is an unwell patient, and I will treat them to save their life and to treat them for that purpose. I do understand from a public point of view that you don't want to be going into a hospital thinking that people are going to be racist towards you, but at the same time, I really don't think that something as surface level as a social media post can really truly define someone's true intentions. I think people's true intentions, it doesn't mean just because they have social media and they're showing that through social media that's going to dictate how they're truly feeling inside. So I think this is very surface level, judgment of someone.
OK, Dr. Mukherjee, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time this evening on GB News. We're going to cross live now to pictures of what we believe to be President Maduro, or former President Maduro of Venezuela, should I say, landing in the United States. There you can see, it's a bit of a dark picture there, you can see, but I've got my panel here with me. Paul, I'll start with you. Paul Richards in the studio. Paul, this has been one of the most momentous moments of the year. We can agree. It's only a few days into it, but it will be a defining moment of Trump's presidency.
Yeah, and it's obviously designed to be that as well. I mean, it's something that will distract from all his other domestic worries, and it is going to be the sort of the story of the decade, really, I suspect. I mean, it's huge. We're in the very first few hours of this, so we're going to get these kinds of dramatic optics. The landing, presumably will now be a trial. I understand the trial is going to be in New York, so the New York mayor is not going to be very happy about that because he thinks it's a kidnapping. And so we're going to have all of that playing out as well. But the most important thing for me, having gone through being in government during the Iraq crisis, was, how do you then secure the peace in Venezuela? How do you ensure that there aren't militias on the streets and another coup and a civil war and all the things that usually happen when you topple a dictator?
Indeed. Well, we've seen people walking into the plane now. We wonder, I'm sure at some point, we believe Maduro will be walking out of this plane. We don't know whether he's going to be... We saw the pictures, of course, posted by Donald Trump earlier today. He was wearing that sensory mask. He had those big, probably noise-isolating headphones on him too. Jane, this is quite something, isn't it? I mean, I don't think when I woke up this morning I was expecting to see the United States have conducted what seems to be one of the best precision military interventions I've ever seen or read about, because there was little bloodshed, as far as we know, whatsoever. They've got in, they've extracted this man. They've now brought him to Stewart Air National Guard Base, I believe, which is located in Orange County in New York. we expect if this is him on this plane, he'll now be taken somewhere quite safe. He was with the DEA the last time we saw, and that was, of course, the Department, the Drug Enforcement Agency. What's the significance of him being taken in by the DEA, do you think?
I think President Trump is framing this as narco-terrorism, and I think that term, we're going to hear a lot of it, because if they do prosecute President Maduro, and I think his wife as well, it's going to be quite odd to prove that she was complicit in narcotics dealing, I think, but I think this is going to be a fascinating case. Trump clearly wants these optics. He wants the photos of Maduro humiliated, getting off the plane.
We can see people coming off the plane, a few, 3 people there, perhaps. We won't, I don't know if we'll know, but I suspect he's going to be mobbed. If he is on this plane, he'll be surrounded by service personnel in some form, whether that's DEA officials or American military personnel. So I don't think he was one of those 3 people that just left. I suspect we will know when he gets out of that plane, because they will take every precaution to make sure he's safe.
I mean, you have to say he has to be tried for narco-terrorism or whatever it is, because otherwise this is an act of war, and in the US Constitution you have to tell Congress get Congress's approval for it. So for this not to be basically an American coup, he has to present it in this way.
Some judges may not like prosecuting, so if they consider there's been an international law breach, you may get some lawyers who have reservations. But I think there is justifiable grounds if Trump can sell to the judiciary, to the American people, that this was defence of American people.
Jamie, this is the kind of stuff that Americans, it seems to me, even Washington Post, WAPO as some people call it, a left-leaning, news outlet, they, of course, not been very favourable towards Trump. Even their board has supposedly come out in favour of this action today. This might go down as quite a good moment for Donald Trump, but at least for those people who might be on more of the centre-left that want to see these strong actions taken to destroy what they would call narco-terrorism.
I think what it is it shows leadership, it shows decision-making, it shows precision, and I think actually most people respect that from leaders, and I think that's something that the American people, no matter where they sit politically, will have some respect for, and I think it's hard not to have respect. If you're patriotic and love your country, you want your country to come out on top of these situations, and I would imagine that the American people will benefit from this in the long run, and perhaps other parts of the world may also, from the culture that now has been played out in geopolitics. Actually, Alex, looking at the scenes now, I think a lot of GB News viewers will be pleased. The aeroplane geeks among us will love actually seeing it's the Boeing 757. You don't see those at all, and that'll be bringing back lots of people's memories from charter holidays to the Canary Islands, I'm sure. But
it's not
what is interesting?
Quite the Jet 2 holiday people are expecting, I guess.
Look at the optics for Donald Trump right here. He has gone in, he has done what he's done, and now on American soil, we believe is going to be the person that's at the centre of all of this, someone that is pretty much ruined a country, and he's now going to get paraded probably down those steps. There will be flashing cameras, there will be everything that Donald Trump wants from a PR perspective, which is, this is me, putting my country first, putting the American people first, ending what has become a very dangerous and toxic trade for the country.
And it's important for Venezuelans and the 8 million Venezuelans who have left Venezuela. It's important for them to see this, to know that that man is no longer in his seized
And I think
post.
we are seeing history being played out right in front of us. I'm pretty confident my children and grandchildren will be studying this moment in the future.
I'm sure they will be. This PR moment, as you said, Jamie, is absolutely important, and we're seeing some more movement around the entrance of the door there. More people walking in and out of the plane, probably gearing up for him to exit. Now, so much will go into this, so many security considerations around this Air Force base in New York, and making sure that he, of course, can stand trial. I mean, there's famous examples where people are assassinated in these moments, of course, isn't there, throughout history? But I'll put this to you, Paul. From a PR perspective, his White House is one of the best. It is one of the best. They are constantly putting out videos of Trump. They're in touch with the younger generation. They cater their posts to certain audiences. That picture of Maduro earlier on will be famous as those pictures, I guess, of Saddam Hussein when he was captured. Do we expect now those, as Jamie was saying, photographers and at least moments to be here of Maduro walking onto American soil to be captured?
Well, one would hope this is not the reason why they've done it. I mean, one would hope they've done it for sound geopolitical reasons and based on the evidence that there was a trade in drugs that was damaging the American well-being. But, I mean, you are, of course, right to say that they have mastered the media. They've created their own media, of course. I mean, the fact that this was on Trump's own social media first, before the world's media got even a sniff of it, he's created his own channels and is pumping his own messages out. And then, similarly, this. I mean, whose camera is that? Is that a news organisation's camera? Is that the US government? With a camera there, I imagine it must be.
If it was the US government, we'd have much better images. But
possibly.
Perhaps we will, Paul. But this is the thing, isn't it? Communication is the most important part of politics. It's how you communicate, how you're being effective. It's a Reuters feed, just so we know, it's not.
Yeah, fair enough. Just curious.
It's a good question, Paul. But it was so important. The communication that America today, when he did that press conference, that no Americans had died, that no American weaponry or even their equipment had been destroyed, and now important, Jane, to show that they've captured Maduro, he's safe in their hands, and this whole thing has been a very competent, bloodless, to a certain extent, I suspect, intervention.
Yes, if you listen to Trump's press conference, I mean, it was a classic. It was one of his usually celebratory moments, saying it was the most fantastic, slick operation with brilliant people, and he really backs his armed forces, which is a lovely thing to hear in a leader. But I think the optics of Maduro here is important, but I think it's not just for Americans, it's not just for Venezuelans. These pictures are going to Iran, they're going to Russia, they're going all over the world, and they are saying President Trump means business this year. And I think he has had a shift in his tactics. I think he is going to be much more interventionist. And if he can use this excuse of this benefits American people, where is the line? Where do you stop that? Because many, many things would benefit the American people, and he could say they're a threat.
Is the danger not, though, that the signal that it sends is that it's OK to invade another country? So if China, if China tomorrow, for example, take Taiwan, they're on firmer footing then than they would have been yesterday. That's the danger, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
Jamie?
But if you're a Ukrainian right now, you've just watched a state invade a state, and I think the West has been pretty weak from early stages from Crimea. So actually, I think there's a message out there to rogue states that they can get away with doing stuff. But the difference here is, I think there will be dictators now looking at these scenes thinking, is that going to be me on those steps in New York at some point in 2026? Because actually what Trump has done is he has shown the world, I'm prepared to be unorthodox. As Nigel said, it was an unorthodox, contrary to international law, but actually the outcome of this might just be that things start to improve around the world.
I think that is quite a dangerous precedent. I mean, the US rules the world. It's got the biggest military. It's got, it's just got the most resources. But if someone we disagreed with, who wasn't our ally, did a similar thing, what would we be saying on the panel?
I mean, the whole point of Trump was that the US is not the world's policeman. We're not going to have these liberal interventions into states we don't like. And he's now done the exact opposite.
Is this the reality sinking in? I mean, there's, of course, politicians say things before they get into office, as we see here in Britain. They say things and they do things very differently.
It's quite a big shift, though, isn't it, Alex? From saying you're against war to being in favour of war, it's quite a big shift.
There'll be a debate now and a constitutional debate as to whether this was a war, right? That's going to be the critical thing we'll find out in the courts, Paul. But there's got to be a discussion amongst us in the West. And I was saying this earlier on GB News. We have sat by and watched Putin take Crimea. We did nothing. And then, we're still umming and ahhing, should I say, about whether or not how much support we should give Ukraine. What should we do? We've been weak on that. We've been weak on Iran as they've been funding Hezbollah and Hamas that allowed them to attack Israel and now break out all this chaos across the world. Isn't it about time that we wake up in the West and go, actually, we can't live in this world that everyone is supposedly holding hands, there's solidarity between the nations, when actually the reality is there are people out there who hate us, they want to destroy us. China is getting stronger by the year, and actually if we don't do something, as Trump has said before, we will end up being a second-tier country, actually bending over to places like China.
I think what I'm pleased about, this has ignited a debate about international law, and I think people are looking at things like the ECHR, they're looking at the United Nations, and I think most people's expectation is the rules are there to be beneficial and fair to everyone. But when you see something like the Chagos Islands recommendation and decision, it's clearly just bunkum. It makes no sense at all. And Keir Starmer will always just roll over and say, absolutely, it's international law, international law. The average Brit, I don't think, sees that. They just see something grossly unfair. And I think in this case, if international law is protecting dictators, if it is protecting states like Putin's invasion, we can't do that. We have to adhere to these rules. I think Trump is trying to throw a bit of a grenade into this debate.
We're seeing a lot of movement out the front door there. I can't quite make out the images. I don't think we've seen President Maduro just yet. Again, I think it will be quite a big tranche of people. We might even see the lights go up slightly. Who knows?
Zoom.
I'm sure that camera will follow it if it is Maduro. I'm sure people in that helicopter have got much better eyes on it than we do. But Paul, to go back to this point, Prime Minister Blair, he intervened in multiple wars, and he still used international law to get around it. But still, people look at those wars and they weren't happy with them. So you can scream international law all you like. It doesn't really matter. States act in their best interest. They act in the interest of their people. And often, a lot of the time, this international law stuff is nonsense, as we've seen before.
I mean, Trump is exercising power in a very naked, clear, transparent fashion. He's saying it's about the oil, it's about our interests, and to hell with everything else. You know, so it is the raw exercise of power. I mean, Blair was a liberal interventionist, so we went into places like Sierra Leone, Afghanistan, Bosnia, Iraq. That was usually under some sort of mandate. He was in trouble over the Iraq and the second mandate from the UN and all that. But if you read his Chicago speech where he sets out his criteria for the kinds of interventions, it was within a rule of law. I mean, I'm not against those kinds of liberal interventions, by the way. If we see a failing state and we think we can do some good there by sending troops in, then we should. We have a responsibility to do so. But this is just, pure naked politics, which is why it's so fascinating and so important.
But when the Venezuelans are literally starving, more than half the population can't get access to food. 8 million people.
But where's it? Okay, but is it going to now follow a load of aid? Because he's just cancelled USA, doesn't he? So that doesn't exist anymore.
It's important to think about how the British people are thinking right now of all this. I remember in 2023 being up for election as a local councillor, just a very, very sensitive time of Ukraine, and almost every other door I went to is, can't we just go in and deal with Putin? A lot of people think this way, so I think there's to be a lot of people actually thinking, isn't it nice to actually see some action and intervention and nobody got hurt?
Yeah.
Well, hang on. You've both said this. I'm not sure that's true. If you look at the scale of the bombing, I can't believe that is without any consequence or casualty. So I think we just need to be a little bit careful.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It seems to me that there's been no reports of civilian casualties, perhaps military casualties, but we'll find out. We don't know, but we will wait. Paul is correct to say that. We will wait and see. But to unpack these developments, I'm also joined by Simon Hankinson, Senior Research Fellow at the Border Security and Immigration Centre at the Heritage Foundation. Thank you very much for joining me, Simon. Unprecedented. Well, not unprecedented, because it has happened before, stuff like this, but really unprecedented in modern times, Simon, to see a president extracted so clinically from his position and brought over to the United States of America to stand trial of all the things. This wasn't the same story we saw with Saddam Hussein and other dictators across the Middle East, was it? This man is being given a full trial. What does that tell us about the situation here and how confident Trump is in sticking it to the sky?
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of an 80s action film, how this unrolled. And as you say, it's not unprecedented. There was Manuel Noriega taken out of Panama under the first George Bush. There was the attempt to free the hostages in 1980, which unfortunately was a disaster. But to see this roll out and with pretty much total secrecy, I mean, I don't know if any observers out there had seen this coming. I certainly hadn't read anything about it. Is just incredible. And obviously, we have a lot of questions now about what happens in the future. But as you say, he was extracted to face charges in a court in New York. And so that will be a legal process that he'll be entitled to. And we have to hope, the best case here is that there's now a government that takes power in Venezuela, either under Machado or Gonzalez or one of the politicians who we believe was elected last year, that can take this country out of the socialist hell that it's been living in for 25, 30 years and bring it back to the prosperity that it deserves.
Indeed. Simon, talking of Iran, that seems to be the other hot topic, and we are going to talk about this on this show tonight. We're interrupting the usual programming, by the way, just for those of you watching at home, because we want to bring you these live pictures. It would be a historic moment. We don't want to miss it. But Simon, talk about Iran here. Of course, Trump has said he's locked and loaded, ready to intervene if more civilians are killed in these uprisings. Ayatollah Khamenei's Twitter account, which I'm sure he probably doesn't run himself, but let's just assume he's the bloke saying it, shall we? His Twitter account says this: the goal of soft warfare is to cause people to lose their motivation. People who are on the scene ready to strive and work in order to make them lose their motivation, to give up their hope, to become despaired and to become doubtful. That's written in English, interestingly, unless it's automatically translating it for me. I don't think it is. That's a message, isn't it, to Donald Trump in the American administration, saying we're not going to be shocked by what you've done here. He's talking about soft warfare, which many would describe this action as. Should we expect Trump to maybe take that as a bit of a, come on, we're ready to go?
Well, there's a lot of bluster in international politics. The Iranians are famous for it, and President Trump is hardly our most reticent president when it comes to, saying what he thinks he might do and trying to keep his enemies guessing. But Iran is going through a crisis, that's for sure. They've been through some in the past, ever since the revolution in the 70s. But it is a completely different kettle of fish. If you think about it strategically, geographically, the United States was able to bring to bear naval forces, air forces, land forces in Venezuela, which is in our sphere of influence. And, not that much. I think Venezuela is about as far from New York City as, Texas is. I mean, it's not a long way away. Iran is a very different ballgame. So what the president has in mind as far as helping the people of Iran to overthrow their regime, if that's what they want, I couldn't begin to guess that. But I definitely think it's a completely different calculation and would involve very different tactics.
Simon, just to ask you about this, we've seen another 6, what we think probably are DEA officers. They could be FBI, we're not sure. They've just entered the aircraft. What is the significance of the role of the DEA in this? In that picture of Maduro, who's been, of course, captured by the United States, we do see at least the letters, emblazoned on a jacket of what looks like a DEA official. What is the significance of that?
I think the significance is that the charges that are being brought against Maduro and his wife are mostly drug charges. Drug trafficking, drug conspiracy. There's some weapons charges that I saw in there, too. I haven't read the entire indictment yet. And there are charges dating back to 2020, to the first Trump administration. So that would be the province of the Drug Enforcement Agency to manage. Obviously, they'd be prosecuted by federal prosecutors. So I would assume that's why the DEA are there and not some other federal agency.
Indeed. Simon, thank you so much for joining me. That's Simon Hankinson there, Senior Research Fellow in the Border Security and Immigration Centre at the Heritage Foundation. I've got my panel here with me still. Of course, we'll stay with these pictures because we suspect he will emerge from the aircraft at any moment. Who knows? We'll obviously get full screen on that as soon as we can. Jamie, this has been a day where the European leaders across the continent at least have utterly scrambled. Trump hasn't bothered picking up the phone to Macron or Starmer or anyone else, as far as we know. That has left them all completely dumbfounded this morning. What does that say about our relationship with our closest ally?
Well, I think the European Union and the United States of America have definitely broken down relations. That's the EU's fault entirely. What I think is interesting is that Britain, I thought, one of the Brexit bonuses would be that we would be able to have a slightly more special relationship, even more special than the special relationship that's been with our longest and most loyal ally. However, it would appear, I think this government has certainly made that relationship more difficult. The previous Foreign Secretary said the most awful things about Donald Trump, then pretended each evening to be friendly. The current Foreign Secretary is totally out of her depth. I doubt she even knew if Venezuela was a country. And so now you're in a situation where you've got incompetent cabinet, can't even get domestic affairs in order. This is like trying to get somebody that, has got a D in maths to go and do a degree in maths. If they can't get domestic affairs in line, how on earth can they deal with complex geopolitical issues like this one? So actually, if I was Donald Trump, probably the last person I would want to speak to or consult with would be Keir Starmer, because he's actually a useless prime minister, and he's actually proving, I think, to be a useless ally. The Americans have clearly kept Starmer out of the way. But what I think is very weird is that Keir Starmer got up this morning, found out about this, didn't get straight on the phone to the President of the United States of America and see what was going on, see if there's anything that Britain can do in the national interest of our own country, let alone America. And what is very weird is that our Prime Minister chose to have a chat with the BBC before speaking to the President and then came and addressed the nation without knowing anything. I think it's very weird, very poor, weak leadership, but we're used to it now. And that's what I worry about. Are we getting complacent with how bad this government is and just assuming everything's going to be weak?
Jane, this is what we have, just for the record here, from what we understand, DEA and FBI officials have been walking in and out of the aircraft. A lot of work will be going into securing the area, securing the aircraft. Of course, there's been a lot of assassination attempts in America over the last few years, so I'm not surprised they're taking their time doing this. But Jane, to go back to this issue of European leaders, and Jamie, I think you've said it, you've probably put it to the way that most people in Britain would feel, but you know, I guess what the Prime Minister was saying this morning is he wants to speak to European allies about their response to this. What is this obsession with this collective opinion on everything? Why do we all need to have a collective opinion? Why can't our country act as a sovereign nation and have an opinion that is either for or against this? Whatever way, at least it would be ours.
Well, I think Keir Starmer has proved over the last couple of years the only thing he has a sort of real conviction about is the European Union. It is his Brussels mothership calling, and he will always refer back to Brussels. But I agree with Jamie. This morning, I found it astonishing that he was going, well, I'll wait to watch the press conference later. This is our Prime Minister, my goodness. But I think Trump has become, I'm sure I'm not making it up, Trump is becoming king of the soft trolling of Starmer. If you think he sat him in the Oval Office and started slagging off Sadiq Khan next to Keir Starmer, who just looked so awkward, I thought that was very funny indeed. But I don't think Trump is as friendly with Keir as he likes to. Of course, he will say, I like the guy, you know, but I think Keir Starmer, he is not as close to Donald Trump as he likes to think he is.
Yeah.
But I thought an operation like this needs to be done in proper secrecy. So I wouldn't have expected, because we're not a near neighbour to Venezuela, obviously, I wouldn't have expected pre-notification until the button was pressed, until that very last moment. But I certainly would expect, with such a close ally, somebody to phone our Prime Minister. If not the President, a Secretary of State, somebody to inform us what's going on, why they've done it. But clearly, they don't value Keir Starmer as much as I would like them to.
The Americans didn't do it when they invaded Grenada, and they didn't do it when they took out Noriega in Panama either, because these kinds of operations, exactly as you say, have to be conducted in secrecy. So to be fair to Donald Trump, there's a phrase I never thought I'd say, he has to do it and not tell his allies, because otherwise something might leak out and it would be a situation very different to the one we're watching unfold tonight. So you can make it about Starmer, but it's not, actually.
No, but it is interesting to see that even after the action was completed in Venezuela, that European leaders still didn't know what was going on. And I think it's very telling about the way that the Americans see our continent now, which has become ever weaker, ever indecisive. We've got this coalition of the willing, this coalition of the useless. What have they done? What have they done? What is the point of setting up this coalition of the willing who've been anything but willing, Paul? And it's embarrassing, isn't it, when the Prime Minister makes this one of his top international priorities. We used to be the world superpower. We have become so diminished, and even our generals are coming out and saying our military's falling apart. This is why America won't bother to call us.
We're not the world superpower, which is why we do need to deal with our allies and create these international alliances across Europe and rearm Europe so we can stand up against the Russians. And I know it drives everybody absolutely up the pole that Starmer is slow, deliberative, evidence-based and loyally. But that is who he is. And he is, like I say, the grown-up in number 10 who actually is looking at the evidence. He's going to get all of those signals coming in from the intelligence services. He'll have taken the phone calls with other allies. He'll wait and see.
I mean,
which is
the middle of the night.
And given it's so fast-moving and so unprecedented, we haven't seen this since the 80s, really. I think it's entirely reasonable he didn't just rush to Twitter
but
and
also, we know Starmer doesn't have an opinion on virtually anything, so he probably doesn't even have an opinion today. He's waiting for people to tell him what his opinion should be, probably waiting for the EU leader WhatsApp group chat to quickly get some more content. But Alex, I think it's an important point.
OK, look, we've got a lot of movement there. Well, let's just see if we can spot Maduro. There's some flashing lights, perhaps just from the plane there, but a few people off-boarding there. There looks like a lot more movement happening on the plane now. Perhaps the area has been secured around Stewart Air Force Base, which would signal the president, or the former president of Venezuela, is about to literally touch American soil. We expect he'll be escorted by both FBI and DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, of course, who have been the ones who seemingly have been looking after former President Maduro. We still think that he is still on the plane at the moment, but we're going to keep you posted as and when. Whenever there's a bit of movement, we're going to come back to it. There's lots of people still ushering out. This will be a really important part of the process, which is making sure everything is ready. Nothing can go wrong, because, Jane, if something went wrong in this little bit here on American soil, it would completely devalue everything that's happened so far, wouldn't it?
Yes, but I think I trust the Americans to do these things extremely professionally and confidently and competently.
Sorry to interrupt you, Jen. It does look like there's people taking photos now, and there's a very slow walk with a lot of people there. I know it's dark.
Or is that a flashing light under the walkway?
Yes, there is, but there is a man facing backwards who looks like he might be holding a camera or something. Now, given the fact the camera is panning down, then we suspect that Maduro might be part of this convoy of people. It certainly looks like it to me. There's a slow walk down the stairs, which may mean a man is being slowly walked down the stairs with those agents. That's what it looks like to me. We think this is President Maduro about to touch American soil. There you go, for the first time, as he faces those charges in the United States of America. If they pull this off, I'm sure he'll be rushed into a top armoured vehicle and be under heavy protection by the American authorities there. Of course, we'll try and keep you posted there, but we do believe now, breaking, that former President Maduro of Venezuela has landed and touched down on soil of the United States of America. There will be many people around the world watching this image, a historic moment for sure, as President Trump will have signalled a successful operation extracting the so-called dictator out of Venezuela, and now peacefully, at least somewhat peacefully, into the United States of America. Now, I know this is a very dark shot here. I'm struggling to see it myself, but we do believe he's being marched over there into military vehicles in the United States of America. Jamie, a moment of history being made here, something that I didn't expect I'd see in my lifetime. We've seen, Saddam Hussein being captured and then killed quite quickly. Many others, they never really get brought to America. The same for Osama bin Laden, is eliminated at the moment in time. Not the same here for Maduro. They want to trial.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, actually, this is a bit of a two fingers to the Hague, I think, as well. Do you know what? The American people are actually going to take matters into our own hand when it comes to getting justice. And what is very interesting about what we've just seen, I think, is that this was obviously a very complex operation. It's like phase one is complete. He's now on American soil, being marched, obviously, surrounded by what looks like lots of...
Yeah, and just to give some commentary to the audience here, we can see DEA officers with their smartphones taking pictures. We don't know whether that's... probably might actually just be part of this whole process, which is capturing the moment. It looks like Maduro in blue there with his something over his head, walking very slowly. He's possibly got something covering his face there. There is, a convoy of officers here. A convoy would be, there is so many, I can't even tell you. It looks like he's been flanked by the DEA and now is moving into some sort of aircraft hangar. There's been cameras there being shot by, of course, by DEA officers as well, taking pictures. There is a final picture of the plane. We assume that Maduro will be on his way to a court in New York very soon. Now, perhaps we don't know whether his wife will be in a separate convoy. We don't know. It doesn't look like they were together. If that was Maduro, that doesn't look like they were together. I highly suspect it was Maduro. Perhaps his wife was kept separately. We don't know. We'll, of course, let you know as and when that happens. Now, we'll show you some replays of that footage in just a moment. It's a little bit difficult to see here in the studio studio, but what you guys weren't seeing was a man in blue being walked very slowly across to the tarmac of the Air Force base there, and with DEA officers taking pictures of him. Now, there are reports that Maduro will be escorted in a helicopter, taken by helicopter to his next location. We're not exactly sure where that is, but again, we will let you know as and when we do. Quite the operation, quite an operation here, Jane. Again, historic moment here for the United States of America, and a historic moment for Donald Trump's presidency, which isn't even yet a year in.
Yeah, well, it's the second term. He can't stand again, which means he's got free rein now. He doesn't have to keep that supporter base as his first priority. But I think it will be interesting to see the time frame now, how quickly they want to see the charges brought and how quickly they can get him in front of a court, because I think now this extraordinary removal of whether you call him a president or a dictator.
And this is shots from earlier on, by the way, just him walking down the aircraft stairs there as he makes his way to touch American soil for the first time, perhaps. Jane. But Paul, no matter what you think of Donald Trump, this will go down as one of the more successful precision military operations, something that many countries would be astounded that he could pull off with so fast, so quick. It puts people like Putin to shame, if you want to put it that way. That man couldn't even take Kiev with all his power and his nuclear weapons in weeks, and it looks like Trump's been able to get rid of this bloke out of Venezuela in a matter of hours.
I mean, it's the Delta Force's, triumph, actually, isn't it? They've managed to achieve this, as you say, surgical extraction. I mean, only really the Israelis, I imagine, are the people who could have also managed this, in terms of elite forces. So that story, that part of the story needs to be told, and we'll find out in subsequent days, I'm sure. Like I say, let's just be conscious that the civilian deaths will mount from that bombing that we saw, because it was so ferocious. Those were not empty buildings they were bombing. So that will unravel too. But yeah, the big piece now is what happens next, because you create any nation that you create a vacuum like this by physically removing the power broker. What usually happens is it descends into rancor and civil war. So how do you prevent that is the question.
But I think this is one of the even more extraordinary things, and I can't believe we've not really mentioned it. The fact the US is saying it will now administer Venezuela.
Yeah.
So
directly.
That is.
But what does that mean? Governor General? I mean, with
I suspect
the American
it's something
troops? I mean,
similar to what happened in Iraq, which is probably a military administration at the start, at the beginning. I highly suspect that. However, we do know that there are opposition figures in Venezuela. I suspect the American military and its intelligence service personnel will have a big record of people they would like to vet to run this
And I'm pretty sure also what will become unravelled is that they won't have just turned up and taken this guy. There must have been inside collusion. So one of the rival factions may well have worked with CIA to make this happen. And that's the vital thing. We need a transition to a democracy.
This has been in the planning to do such a precision operation like they've done. This has been planned for a very long time, and they would have planned for every eventuality, including it going to plan and therefore some sort of administration. And I think there will be, certainly I think from Trump's administration's perspective, I think there will be a desire to quickly get some sort of democratic resolution for the state, because I very highly doubt with an American first agenda, they're interested in being the administration of Venezuela for longer than they need to. So I imagine there is a plan for this. And actually what I think probably will start to happen now, there'll be communication with other world leaders on what the next steps will be for Venezuela.
Well, just a reminder that earlier on in the press conference, Trump did mention a second wave, he called it, a second wave of military interventionism if the first wave didn't pull off the way they wanted it to. Now, he was saying that precision strike was so good that they didn't need to do that second wave, which he, in his words, was going to be far bigger and probably would have led to perhaps a much bigger assault in Venezuela. This is the difficulty, isn't it, with these things? It can go very, very awry very quickly, Jamie, and you do need the best in the world to pull this off. This is the sort of message that he's sending to his adversaries, to the adversaries of the West, the adversaries of America, to say, we can do this, by the way, and we can do it with a very small force. We can do it. We've got the best military personnel in the world. Watch out. And he's sending a lot. I mean, we said we're going to talk about Iran. I hope we have time to tonight. If we don't, we will talk about it tomorrow. But this is a message to the mullahs in Iran.
Well, especially when people are out there comparing how many submarines this country's got, how many troops, how many personnel. Actually, what Trump has said, and I think a strong message for the West, is actually that our guys are trained to the highest standard and we can go in and do this stuff.
OK, there's some breaking news here. RAF Typhoons joined French aircraft in a joint strike on Saturday evening on an underground facility in Syria, which had been occupied by the Islamic terror group Daesh, most likely to store weapons and explosives, the Ministry of Defence has said. Oh, it's been 2026 has been quite a start, hasn't it? We're only 2 days into this show. I think I was saying on New Year's Eve that this is going to probably be a quiet year, given how bad it was last year. However, just to recap that breaking news for you, RAF Typhoons joined French aircraft in a joint strike on Saturday evening on an underground facility in Syria, which had been occupied by the Islamic group Daesh, most likely to store weapons and explosives, the Ministry of Defence has stated. Quite interesting, Paul. We're talking about military interventionism, and the Prime Minister, well, I'm sure, would have sanctioned that military action today, wouldn't he?
Well, of course. I mean, Saturday evening is now. You know, that's happened.
Yes, you're right. Sorry,
that's happened within the last few minutes.
It happened in the last few minutes, which is very interesting timing, isn't it? It's very interesting timing that the Prime Minister's given the go-ahead to do this. This would have been on his mind, I'm sure, when he woke up this morning, and still given the green light to it, despite everything that's going on.
Well, exactly. And, of course, that would have been in coordination with the Americans as well. That wouldn't have been unilateral action. So, you know, there is a joined-up approach to these terror groups, and this is obviously very early days, but it's playing out. And isn't it interesting that it's also in collaboration with the French?
Indeed. It is very interesting.
It actually makes you wonder whether Trump actually thought, you know, we'll go ahead and do this, knowing that there might be some European military action in the Middle East, because that will stop them coming out and criticising me for doing some intervention.
Be interesting if they had a heads up.
That would be an interesting story.
I'll tell you what is really interesting is what's happening tomorrow.
Well, what's that, Paul?
I mean, we don't know, do we? That's the whole point.
I thought you had something.
This starts to unravel, doesn't it? I mean, things are now moving so fast. We keep talking about Iran, but I mean, who knows where he's going to strike next?
But this is going to be a year. It seems if the year starts as it means to go on, this is going to be a year like no other. 2026 has got off to an explosive start all over the world. We have Iran up in flames, Iranians fighting back against the Islamist regime there. We've had Venezuelan President Maduro been removed by the President of the United States, and now we know the Ministry of Defence have stated that, of course, we have attacked and struck a weapons and explosives, perhaps depot, occupied by Daesh in Syria. A year of interventionism, at least at the start of it here. We'll just go back to those clips there for you of President Maduro of Venezuela landing and touching American soil, we think, for the first time there. This is unprecedented times we're living in, Jane, isn't it? It really is. It does feel like the world is about to really see the Trump agenda through the next year as an interventionist agenda. America is back, the sort of, don't mess with me. I haven't got another presidential election to win. This might be the sort of things that Trump will be saying to his enemies. Don't worry, I haven't got another presidential election to win. It doesn't matter if I'm the most unpopular president in history. I will intervene if need be.
It is extraordinary. If you think of the number of spinning plates on sticks President Trump is now taking his hand to. He's got the Middle East peace plan, he's got Venezuela, he's got Iran, all of these things, China, a lot of these things do link into China, whether that's via Venezuelan oil or whether trade and sanctions and other things. But I do think we are seeing an extraordinary start to the year, and it's a little bit terrifying, actually.
Terrifying. It is
and you
terrifying.
think the unrest and with the civil uprising in Iran. And I think everybody wishes the Iranian people well, because that is another country that's
if we can get rid of the mullahs, if we can,
I don't think
that would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Mourn their
it would be
astonishing,
and the fact that they've been funding the Houthis and Hamas and the Hezbollah and their role, and they're a nuclear-armed state. Let's not forget. So if we can remove the mullahs, hopefully through a popular uprising, then that would be absolutely terrific.
But I think you're right to always raise what happens next. And I think in Iran and in Venezuela, I think we need to see the people of those countries taking those decisions, taking those steps. You know, having their say, because imposing your version of a leader will not cut the mustard.
Jamie, you know, when we talk about Iran and we talked about those nuclear weapons, because we are talking about a nuclear-armed state at least, and it's certainly, at least as far as we know, trying to build those weapons. Trump said when he was asked about the question of nuclear development in Iran, he said if there was more, he would bomb Iran. He would bomb and repeat the same action that he said was brilliant before. He said he was precise, that precise action when he took out, what was it, Operation Hammer or something, that Midnight Hammer, when he went and flew those U-2 bombers and blew up those nuclear weapons depots in Iran.
Israel's done it as well.
He also said he didn't want to waste the fuel doing it. This is the thing. This is the sort I don't want to waste the fuel. You know, this is sort of stuff that Trump, this characteristic of Trump, and it just shows how little he thinks of them. He's like, you know, I can do it now, but I don't want to waste the fuel on you.
Well, I think that's the businessman in him, actually, probably taking that calculated decision as well as thinking about the military operation. But I think what is very interesting now, Alex, is we've got a very different world. When we've had uprisings in the past, we haven't had the social media coverage and media coverage that we now have. What will be very interesting is how do people in the West actually start to now get behind Iranians that are trying to see a popular uprising, or are we going to see silly left-wing idiots taking to the streets of London trying to make it out to be something completely out of touch? One thing, sadly, we know about these lefties is they don't listen, because if they listen, they wouldn't, first of all, if they listen to people, they wouldn't opt for socialism. But more importantly, we now have a situation where something on the streets of Iran can be on my phone within 1 second or even live. And so we have a very different world to what we had 20 years ago when we've seen similar dictators fall.
Absolutely. And of course, just so you know, we are waiting to see if we're going to get live images of the helicopter escorting President Maduro, I keep calling him President Maduro, he's former President Maduro now, isn't he, from the airbase there to his next location. We will let you know as soon as we get those, or if we do get them. Just want to compare what was Trump's previous speeches about al-Baghdadi. Remember those al-Baghdadi moments when he said, you know, we got him, sort of, that was the Bin Laden, it was Obama, he said, well, we got him, you know, the al-Baghdadi speech. These are very different speeches, because Trump in those speeches is talking about the elimination of a terrorist in specific countries, not people they've brought back for trial. Now, for those of you history geeks out there who, you know, loved what we spoke about in World War II, we spoke about whether we should try the Nazis at one point in time, whether we should just execute them or put them on trial. There is an important thing about putting people who are at least, you know, accused of doing something criminal on trial, Paul.
I mean, part of the rationale for the Nuremberg trials was to get the evidence base that there had been a Holocaust, that the senior command knew about it, that they were the executioners, and not let any sort of myth around that established in the first years after the Second World War. And I mean, this is partly that, so they want to establish an evidence base for why they've done what they've done today, but also it's a way of getting around Congress, because, you know, if it's not an act of war, if it's an act of international justice, then they don't need to tell Congress. But, you know, he is playing fast and loose with the Constitution, Trump is, and we have to be quite clear on that. And I think the other thing, you know, being a political geek, the impact on MAGA is going to be fascinating too, because there's a lot of people within the senior ranks of his own support base who don't want America to be the world's policeman, who don't want to be taking over other countries and bombing their way to freedom and all that. You know, there's a strong strain within his own
he has to
base that say, well, hang on, that's not what we signed up for. So he's going to have to deal with that domestically as well.
Well, that will be interesting, won't it, Jamie? Because, you know, his whole approach was America first. We're going to build, you know, we want to build an isolationist almost America that prioritises the American people. Now, I mean, I was making this argument with Paul earlier on today that actually I think this intervention might be seen as an American first, or at least be able to be sold as American first, because it was taking out a man who was causing mass migration, which was very much upsetting the MAGA right, and was also importing, you know, billions of pounds, as they say, of drugs into the country. Do you think this will be seen as a bit of a America first policy, or do you think he'll be attacked by his right wing on this?
I think that most sensible supporters of Trump will see this as America first, because actually all it's going to do in the long run is make America better. Don't forget, there is a risk of a huge amount of South American immigration. Don't forget that wall that Donald Trump spoke passionately about. You know, if these countries in South America start to fall, you see, as we see in all parts of the world when you have regimes, is that you end up with loads of unwanted immigration. So I think that there is definitely an America first agenda, but that will not be an easy sell to people that just think that any helicopter leaving America to go to another country is somehow betrayal of what Trump promised. So he must communicate that. But actually, most Americans who support Trump, don't forget, are not necessarily in places where the drug epidemic is such a problem. So if you look at the West Coast of America, that is not necessarily Donald Trump's stomping ground, where you go to places like San Francisco, Los Angeles, where the drug problem is enormous. I mean, it's unbearable. People don't visit these places. Businesses are closing down. You go underneath a freeway in America, that part of America, and you know, you don't know if you're going to get out the other side without being harassed. The same applies to New York. I was in New York not too long ago, and it's a horrible place to be in parts of New York that were once wonderful. So actually, a lot of Donald Trump's base won't actually recognise the drug problem. So that's a really important thing that he has to communicate in order to not lose that base. But as you rightly pointed out, is he that bothered about the base anymore? Because now he's got an agenda to deliver, he cares about his country. And we know with Trump, he's America first. We know that he has conviction, unlike our Prime Minister.
Indeed. Well, joining us now is defence editor from the Evening Standard, Robert Fox. Robert, thank you for joining me to talk about this breaking story, which, of course, has been going on for the last almost few hours, 9 hours now. Robert, the United Nations is going to have an emergency meeting, emergency Security Council meeting scheduled for Monday to talk about this issue. They have, as an institution, you know, pretty much said this was bad and bad news for Trump. Will he care? Will Donald Trump even care whether the United Nations condemns him? It doesn't really matter. He seems to have a bit of a problem with the UN as it is.
Yeah, but it is America is part of the system that was set up from 1943, 1945, the rules-based order. I think it's worth going through this UN exercise to see what rules do obtain now. It's very interesting how this has been received across the world, and it's very interesting the alarm both in Moscow and Beijing at this very precipitous coup de main by Trump to remove Maduro. He had asked him to go. He had asked him to step down, and Maduro was trying to make terms, and so they have lifted him out. It's not completely unprecedented. The immediate precedent that comes to mind is what happened in Panama with Noriega, who was another drugs leader. He wasn't even purportedly the elected president yet, but it's of a very different scale. And the big question is what happens next? Quote the words, probably a man doesn't find much favour with Donald Trump, but Colin Powell, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs and, of course, more particularly former Secretary of State, famously said about one of the Iraq ventures that once you break something like this, you own it. And I think it's the ownership in practical terms that is really going to prove one of the most testing questions.
Robert, what will the implications for international interventionism be now? Will this embolden other world leaders, Xi Jinping, President Putin in Russia? Will others be looking at this and going, well, if Trump can do it, so can I? Or will this have the opposite effect of that? And Donald Trump might be signalling, if you dare do something like this, I'll do this to you. What is the implication as far as you see it, Robert?
Well, I find it very difficult because I think the messaging is quite, I would say, quite ambivalent in that it strikes two ways. I think for Beijing, it will say, well, perhaps we can maneuver now that Trump and America is distracted. Trump is acting in about five, as one of your guests was saying, America first seemed to be neo-isolationism. Well, it doesn't seem to be like that at all. He's involved in Ukraine. He's involved with what's going on in the South and East China Seas. He's particularly focused on Gaza, Yemen, Sudan is looking very dangerous. And now we have Latin America all together. The Chinese, by the way, I think will be very annoyed about this because they were really trying to dig in, and it's been very consistent for decades, second only to what they're doing in Africa. They have been getting very involved in South America, and I think that this will worry them. For different reasons, I think Moscow, the takeaway there is that they would be concerned that Trump and his inner circle may be distracted by this. I mean, there will be, over the next few days, possibly a few weeks, a bit of firefighting involved in this. He's got to work out how many boots he's going to put on the ground. He will have to put some, because he's, you know, that America is going to run it, as he said, and it's who he can hand over to is the big question, whether they can find a suitable candidate in the military and the administration, a combination of the two. They've already rejected the opposition, the political opposition. Now, with Trump and his team preoccupied with that, for Moscow is that they won't be getting the attention, the help that they want to put Zelensky in a corner to bring them, that is the Kiev team, to the negotiating table on the terms that Russia would like. I hope I'm not making that too complicated. And that's the way it works on. But we do have to talk about Europe here, because Europe will be utterly confused about the relationship and the alliance with America now. Contrary to what has been said, actually, it is very important. And America and its armed forces do place emphasis on that, because all the bluster about withdrawal and so on, they're keeping 76,000 American troops in Europe, contrary to what was said before, for at least 2 years more. That's the latest pledge.
It's going to be a very developing situation. I'm sure the European leaders, as the Prime Minister has said earlier today, were sort of scrambling to get a joined-up response, as they seem to like to do these days. They don't particularly act as individuals anymore. They tend to act as a collective. I would love to get your impression on what we've also done this evening, Robert, while I've got you, which is the MOD have announced, of course, that we have Britain and France have taken unilateral strikes against Daesh operatives, or at least weapon caches, they think, in Syria. This is a pretty stark start to 2026, at least when it comes to the stability and peace of the world.
I do take your point, because I think this is one of the most worrying things, is that when we had presentations from the head of the Secret Intelligence Service and the Domestic Security Service, sorry, in basic money, MI6 and MI5, what were they talking about? They were talking about the various threats to this country. And of course, they'd sort of rather gone away from IS and Islamist extremism, political militancy, particularly as they were focusing on things like Russian nosiness around the coast of Britain and the coast of Northern Europe. We're interested in communications. Were they planning some sort of asymmetric false flag operation? And we've tended, at least as far as the news headlines were concerned, to forget about IS. I think, oddly, it's what came out so quickly from the Bondi Beach shootings that really was a wake-up call, because the two perpetrators alleged, or you could see that they were shooting at people, they received IS-affiliated training in the Philippines. It's back. The international networking is around there, and it is extremely concerning, because it has also not popped up, but it's emerged through the terrible violence in Sudan. And particularly one side there is working through migrant groups going up through Libya, and they think Daesh, that Islamism is present there. And of course, we've had various activities of IS splinter groups right across sub-Saharan Africa, and now particularly in Nigeria, Niger, that corner. It is back there. And that's why I think the Brits and the French will be paying a lot of attention, because I'm afraid that the hidden message is here is it's active again. It's coming back. It's trying to weaken the rather rickety regime in Syria. And very likely, and I think this is what Turkey is warning us, it's coming your way to Europe, and Europe, in that sense, includes Britain.
Worrying situations around the world. We could just see pictures here, we believe, of former Venezuelan President Maduro on his way to another location in central New York there. We can see roads have been cleared. You can all see the live images there, of course, as Maduro makes his way to another location. We expect another secure location. He's just landing there. A massive police cordon. We don't know if it's him for sure, but we suspect it probably is, given the police completely blocking off those areas there. If you've been to New York, you'll know if it's part of anywhere near New York City. I don't know whether it's how central this is, by the way, whether it's in the state or whether it's in the city. It will cause a hell of a lot of traffic, I'll tell you that for sure. Not be welcome news to New Yorkers, I'm sure. This is a huge, huge operation, and you can only imagine the planning that has gone in from the minute that the military intervened in Venezuela to even these details here, Jane, of him landing in New York and preparing him to go to trial.
Yeah, it is extraordinary to watch the pictures and to see him in a, in a helicopter now, heading wherever he's going to be. I'm sure he'll be treated very well. I'm interested to see what comes next in Venezuela, whether, as you've seen her win the Nobel Peace Prize, Maria Machado.
Yes.
If she's the person I think someone like me would expect to be in the running, she was prevented from standing, even though she was a presidential candidate. And I would be interested, I would also be interested to see if Venezuela, under its new government, would want Maduro charged with crimes against his own people, but of which there were many. You'd got this long-term sort of informant, encouraging people to inform on their neighbours, arresting people without trial, detaining. He has done some horrific things. It's easy just to look at what Trump's talking about, the narco-terrorism. He's done a lot of things in Venezuela against his own people.
Indeed.
So I think to see these pictures, we can't see a great deal of Mr. Maduro at the moment, but I think we're in for a really fascinating few days.
Yes, I don't know if we've still got Robert Fox with us down the line at all. Robert, I'd love just to come back to you for a moment. Putting Maduro on trial in America is one thing, Robert, but of course you're right to suggest there that actually him being on trial in Venezuela might be more powerful. Are we expecting now there to be maybe a little bit of a ping-pong for Maduro, him starting with his trial in America, and then when they have a new president or a new administration in Venezuela, for him to go back? Would that set a better precedent here going forward?
Yes, there's a certain amount of juridical logic, can I say, to that. But in practical terms, I think it's absolutely not possible at all. Because what we have got to take into consideration, that's why I mentioned, that so far there are 10, 15,000 US military personnel involved in this. If things get very sticky in holding the capital and getting a regime going, it's quite a small army. And there are lots of other bad players around, because we've had the insurgents from Colombia taking refuge and setting up their camps in Venezuela, the FARC and the ENC. And I think that we have to sort of pull focus, as it were. It's a very volatile region, and one must be worried about what the effect on the immediate neighborhood would be, particularly Guyana and Ecuador. And Ecuador is, by all accounts, is in it's sort of an open season mafia war there. And this is extremely worrying. You've got to be able to secure what you can. And this is where I have to mention the situation in Iraq in 2003, where the Americans overthrew Saddam. There was regime change, but it led, a very effective military operation again, led to what was an insurgency, a civil war, and a real booster to what was to become the Islamic State, ISIS, and the new caliphate. And the big mistake there was that they put in a caretaker regime headed by an American official, Paul Jerry Bremer, and they got rid of the army. and they got rid of the Ba'ath Party on ideological grounds. Well, that is understandable to a point, but the Ba'ath Party controlled everything in so many aspects of the administration, from traffic cops to primary school teachers. They've got to find some sort of system, some kind of arrangement to run the country. And that's what the voices from the streets have been saying today, you know, from not only from cracks from the capital, but elsewhere, is saying, what happens next? Who is going to keep the wheels turning? Who is going to keep the schools running, keep the utilities working? Yes, the Maduro and before the Chavez regimes were absolutely terrible, but it still is a country with quite a good infrastructure, quite a reasonable health service, and that has got to be kept. Those sort of things have got to be kept in place at all costs. Now, that is the really difficult. It is boring administrative planning, but that's the thing that America has got to midwife through. And to answer your other point, that's why, and one can understand it in a way, that Trump is skeptical about Machado, the charismatic leader of the opposition, the Nobel Prize winner. He said in Fox News, but she is just not up to running the country in a contested situation, which we are now going to have. And then, of course, there's the whole story, which is causing friction. We've talked about the frictions with China, but the frictions with America, which is the whole story of the oil and the sanctions-busting tankers. They're still pursuing those, and they are deeply connected to Russia, and they're deeply connected because they're a lifeline to a fellow Marxist, soi-disant Marxist regime in Cuba. And that's where Marco Rubio comes in, and he takes a very direct and personal interest, he being of Cuban expat origin.
And Robert, while I've got you here as well, the implications, what would be running through the mind of, let's say, President Putin right now? He's seeing America, which is I mean, we have to be honest. I mean, a lot of British people don't understand that actually America is far more powerful than it's ever been in its history, and that Russia is, of course, still a force to be reckoned with, don't get me wrong, but it's nowhere near the levels of balancing that we saw immediately after World War II, where America and Russia were on sort of equal footing for a little while. America now is the superpower. Is this a signal to Putin and to the Ayatollahs in Iran that we can do this to you if we want to? We can do this to you if we want to do this to you. Is that a signal that perhaps Putin will who has condemned this action, ironically, by the way, is this something that perhaps Trump is signalling to them?
Yeah, well, I think that why Russia might condemn it is that somebody might do it to them. And I'm not saying it's the Americans or Kiev, but they've got one of the shrewdest military leaders in Ukraine now coming as the chief of staff, effectively running Zelensky's office in Budanov. I mean, for goodness sake, they tried to do a false flag of an assassination attempt on Putin in his residence, the so-called 91 or 41, depending which Kremlin mouth you were listening to at the occasion. They couldn't even make that story work. And that's the thing that I think would frighten Putin, to answer your question directly, is the sheer competence so far with which America has done it. They've got in, they've got their man, their intelligence was very good, and I think the use of force descriptions, I know there are very dramatic pictures and lots of fireworks on telly. Actually, it was pretty judicious. It was pretty precise. They knew which air defense systems they had to take out at the main Bogota military airfield. They knew where they had to get in, and they left a lot of facilities, including a lot of military facilities. Is there a deal with parts of the Venezuelan military? I suspect there is. They got in, they got out, and they've done it. But now we're into phase 2, and this is going to be fascinating. I mean, the story is going to change almost by the hour for the next week.
Absolutely. I totally agree, Robert. This is fascinating. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, giving your expert opinion on all of this. That's the defence editor from the Evening Standard, Robert Fox. It truly is, if you're just joining us here on GB News at 11 o'clock, it truly is an historic moment, of course, not just for the world, but for President Trump's administration too. Former President Maduro of Venezuela has touched down in the United States. We brought you pictures earlier on one of him walking down the airplane staircase and taking his first steps on American soil. We believe it was him. It was a man covered in what looked like a blue sort of cloth over his head, being marched slowly by officials of the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, and the FBI. There were some people filming that. I wonder if we will see that footage come out on social media, as has been the trend of this White House. They tend to release a lot of this footage to the public as part of their communication strategy. I, of course, am joined by some new panellists. Diane Spencer's here. Thank you very much for joining me, Diane. Of course, I'm still with Jamie McIver here and Paul Richards in the studio to digest what's going on here tonight. This will be something written about in the history books. Your grandchildren will read about this, your children might read about this. Diane, welcome to the show. We have our front pages in front of us here as well. And just to tell you all at home, if you're tuning in now and wanted to know what's going on in the front pages, the Mirror, the Sunday Telegraph, the Sunday Express, the Mail, the Independent, the Sun on Sunday, the Sunday Times, the Observer, and the Daily Star are all leading with this story. It will be the only story in Britain tomorrow. There is many things happening around the world, but this is the biggest story, Diane, in the world, in Britain. I don't suspect we'll be the only nation which is only talking about this story.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, when I first saw this picture, I was like, oh, he looks like he's having some kind of flotation tank. Do you know what I mean? I think that is the most peaceful American Airlines flight anybody has ever had in their life. I mean, he's completely isolated from what's going on around him. I think it's terribly exciting. I mean, I know that, like, obviously as a comic, I'm not supposed to take anything seriously, so I'm putting a massive dose of salt into this. But do you know he's gone to the Metropolitan Detention Centre where they held Diddy and Ghislaine Maxwell. He has gone to the place where all the big names go.
This is like the celebrity hotel of prisons.
It really is. And do you know what? They already have an issue there with drug smuggling. He's going to fit right in.
Do you know what? Maybe it will get worse. Maybe it'll get worse. Well, listen, I am, of course, this evening joined by comedian Diane Spencer, former Labour advisor Paul Richards, and Reform UK councillor Jamie McIver. We are going to get stuck into this story. Lots more opinion analysis on your way. Talking of that picture, that famous picture of Maduro now captured earlier on this evening with his headphones, his noise-isolating headphones, and a bottle of water in his hands and the mask over his face. I think for many of you at home, that'll be how you'd like to spend 2026 if it carries on like this. Because I tell you what, we are 3 days in. Here it is, 3 days in. And it's 2026.
He's so peaceful.